Hello, hello guys, and welcome to the Spring Equinox special Talking Stick Show. So firstly, I'd like to welcome the pool of the great and the wonderful hosts. We have firstly the alchemist, the light language specialist, Matty Waller. Hello, brother.
Hello, brother. How are you this evening?
I'm very well, very well. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm busy. But these are sometimes some of the best shows when we just turn up to see what happens. So I'm looking forward to it. Highlight of my day.
And we're going to bring out our crystal ball. And we're going to do a bit of abracadabra and see what's going to happen. So I'd like to welcome as well. We have the prayer specialist. We have the great dragon, Laura Massey. Hello.
Hi, Dale. Hi, Matty. Really good to be here again, and I love the seat of our pants shows because that's what we often do with Andrew, and that's how we learn and helps others learn as well. And just to say hi to everybody, and Sari, I hope I say your name right because you've been on before, and great to have you the first one on. So any questions you come up with, just pop them in our chat there. So this is great, guys. This is the time of the decalibration from fraud time and recalibration with Earth's natural time. What does Equinox mean for you two? Spring Equinox.
You go ahead, Matty. You take a first swing at it.
Oh, a lot less than it used to, which is a funny thing to say. However, it's not entirely true. I'm speaking tongue in cheek. I used to swear by the equinoxes, the solstices, when I was learning my prayer process properly, and if I didn't manage to get a fire in or something blocked me on those days, and I was thought no, but I did do a ceremony yesterday, and I did a light language haka, believe it or not, which was pretty cool. It was a point where I had to make certain choices and certain decisions that are difficult, that aren't sticking. And so I decided I was going to do a fire ceremony because at these potent moments, it doesn't really matter, for me personally anyway, which equinox it is, which solstice it is. All it really is it's like a moment of accelerated energy. It's a time where you can... part of myself, Shane. Part of myself. So yeah, it's a moment of accelerated evolution, isn't it? So I took that moment to really lay down some prayers for what it is that I wanted. But the spring represents obviously the birth of new life, and the trees are budding, and for the first times it's not cold in the morning. I can walk without my jacket on. So for me, the spring equinox represents hope, and not careless hope where I'm hoping for something that may or may not happen. The hope that I know that the sun is coming, because I'm a tropical guy. I don't like this weather we have over here. Yeah.
Beautiful, brother. So for me, the spring equinox, I feel that it's a very good time for a rebirth. I feel winter is a time where we go into the deep caves of the self, where we go into the, I'd say, self-analysis and the self-look, when we look inside of ourselves and want to plant the seeds for spring itself. For me, I'm always looking, what can I do to grow going forward? What can I do to plant my own seeds? As well as what Andrew talks about, it's a great time where we have the spiritual armor given to us through the Earth Mother, where we're able to go through this armoring stage with the spring equinox and the autumn equinox as well. So it's a stage for me where it's rebuilding myself, refortifying myself. I've had a very intense, I wouldn't say intense, I don't like to use the word intense. I've had a winter of doing a lot of self-inner work, a lot of stuff I've realised about myself I need to work on more and more. So for me, I had a fire on Sunday, which was incredible, great evening. We did psychic surgery, we did breath work, we had all sorts of things. We had a demon come say hello as well. We had a depossession happen on Thornborough Henge, and it was a huge lesson for me that of light and dark and what we have to deal with at times, and how the self-healing, being in the neutral flow is so important, to not let yourself get overloaded with the darkness. So there was a de-haunting and depossession happening during the ceremony, which myself, James and Carly had to work with, and had a few dealings with this creature afterwards and before and stuff like that. But it just gave me, I'm not trying to big myself up, this doesn't happen all the time, but for me it was a big indication. I spoke to Laura after, was this is the work, what you're doing now is important for all of this, and if you do have to deal with stuff, you're responsible enough for it, like holding people for ceremony. If someone does go through something nasty like that, and now feel responsible to deal with it and not be overwhelmed or blown away by it. Before 7 years ago, if that happened, I might have ran. I might have said, see you later guys, bye.
Which is funny, because I'm in a point now where sometimes I might be like, well, the demon looks a bit more interesting than the humans. I wonder what he's got to say.
That is so Matty.
So that in itself was great, a huge learning for me. So spring is all about the death and rebirth and the renewal of the great grandfather son coming in more to give us more stories, tell us more tales about ourselves, give us more journeys to go on, and a huge realization that I need to advance my ceremonial life as well. Fire ceremony is a huge thing for me, and something I've not done as much in the wintertime. So for me going forward, Spirit was showing me many different things, and how grounding's so important, and for me why programs are one of the self-creating demons, and how much programs can hold myself back with. And so learning more and more how to deal with programs itself. Andrew's been showing me tools and technique. I had an experience which I wish I'd like to share, where I was doing lack. I was removing this lack consciousness programs I created when I had to provide, when I was broke light worker, when I thought love and light would take care of the bills, all of that stuff. I had to go back and start doing that. And I was in the float tank, and I think it was about 7 hours work on this program. And on the 6th hour or 7th hour, I literally saw the program jump out my parasympathetic and run into a door and shut the door really fast. And it was a big realization of, wow, this is the work. And as Andrew says, when we do the inner work, it's not about doing it once, it's about overlaying it and doing it again. And this is a huge misinformation in the spiritual community. It's when people do something to better themselves, it's important to keep going over that until the fortification's there. And that was a huge lesson for me. So for me, spring is all about a new start, a new beginning. And what the fuck can we do into the spring now? Where the fuck are we going? What are we doing? Who am I?
Scotland. That's where we're going.
Scotland. That's where we're going.
So,
Laura, what was it like for you?
So for me, spring equinox, any of those celebrations, for want of another word, is a time stamp for natural living. So it's to get us recalibrated back to the earth time, because we get trampled over rather with fraud time. And then of course soon after spring equinox we're going to have Easter, and it's not as many people who celebrate spring equinox itself as they do the Easter holidays and so on. So I think it's a way, for me, it reminds myself to get back to the natural way of living, align with earth energies, have a fire. Yes, for me, I like to have a fire because I like to connect to the ancestors. That's my portal. And I feel that this time is a particularly powerful one. It is an hour of power. If you like to have those source connections, to increase them, to remind yourself that you are in the world but of the earth, and it's your time to remember that reconnection, and that's where your life force comes from. That's where you co-create the great synchronicities. So yeah, and again, as both of you have said, it's a reseeding, a rebirth. Chuck out all the dross, come in with some new ideas, come in with some new things happening, some new events, and keep dreaming the great dream of peace.
And did you get to do your rain dance?
No. My fire's tonight after this. But also you have welcome, Derek. Thank you Matty and Lucy as well. Again, you've been on before. Thank you. I think, Derek, you're new. It's great to see you here. And Amy in the other chat. Wonderful to have you here, guys.
Incredible, Laura. And that's it for me. My lessons over winter time and doing this work and working with Andrew and working with all of you, I've had to up the scale in which I do things. And I think going back to source connection is some realization I had a few weeks ago. I obviously know source connection is important, but how to deal with these parts of us in the past which aren't source connected. And when we go into source disconnection, that's the program again. And all of our life, the amount of times we were source disconnected to source connection. And for me, like you say, Laura, that natural connection of how fucking important that is. And that's something I'm really working on at the moment, is seeing where I am in my body, make sure I'm grounded, my feet are in the right position, making sure my energy's down below. All of these things I've not really internally looked at. And I've looked at past videos as well and seen parasympathetic stuff within myself. And I'm like, I see you, motherfucker. like I look back and I'm like, holy shit. And the more you see it, the more shit you see about yourself, where the parasympathetic just comes in and says, I'm the experiencing being. I run you. I try and push you out the way. Like even foot positioning. I was speaking to Laura about this the other week. At times where my feet will creep up and they'll move on the sides and they'll start to cross the legs, and that's my parasympathetic trying to unground me and start putting me into position of not feeling the ground and so on. Any more do you want to add to that, Laura and Matty? That's kind of gone off on something else, but I just felt like I needed to share that.
I'd love to say something. Yeah. So I've been doing the same journey. I think all three of us have since we began working with Andrew in this more accelerated level. There's really nowhere for us to hide. You know, when you're friends with Andrew, you can't hold anything from him, and he's not a bully. He wouldn't bring up the things he knows is going to be really uncomfortable. He will just bring up exactly what you really need in order to evolve. You know, and I think I know I'm very similar path to Dale, and I've had something of a turbulent life, all self-created. It's been my choice all along to do the crazy things that I did. But through it all, I have a few scars. But other than that, I stayed in one piece. Didn't kill anybody and didn't get killed, which is remarkable. And I have to say that all along, I felt the touch of something. I felt safe all along, even though I was suffering. I felt protected in a way, and I felt that there was always somebody watching over me and somebody guarding me. And it wasn't until recently I realized it was me. I thought it was a higher power, but now I'm going back on myself and I'm watching myself and I'm connected, like you say, I'm going back to these previous source disconnected versions of myself and connecting them to source, cleaning through the dream worlds, cleaning the pericardium, removing any entities or demonic beings that are attaching to them. And as I'm doing this, day after day after day, I'm learning new skills. I'm creating new infrastructure within the unseen world to assist me to do this, which is remarkable. That you know, this touch of God that I felt my whole life was me, and so now we're reaching that point where, like a 0 point where it's been going one way, and then all of a sudden it's reached a place, and now it's going the other way. If that makes sense.
That makes great sense, brother, and that's it. And I remember, I won't talk about it too much, but on there's Spiritual Protection, one of Andrew's products, which I watched a few weeks ago, and some of the things he talked about there of how that source connection is so important to transmute and kind of, I'd say, connect to really who you are. And watching that, I was almost in tears. I was just like, I've seen so many patterns now within myself. And it all comes down to whether I'm connected to a source or I'm not connected to a source. And those parts of me which aren't connected to source, like you say, Matty, we have to go back and we have to bring the fuckers back to source. So we have to go back and give them the source that they were never given. And anything you want to add to that, Laura?
Yeah, so for me, the spring equinox with his birth and rebirth and separation of densities as well. So exposing those soul shards, looking at those that are in unity consciousness and that you want to pull back in at this time and recalibrate with, and looking at those you really need to disentangle from. Just like some friends, in some ways, this is how it happens, isn't it? As you go on your spiritual journey, there's some you lose along the way. They were meant to be with you for that time, and you lose them and you're ready to move on. And now particularly what today is the new moon, isn't it? So a time for new things and new adventures. And yes, that darn old parasympathetic, eh? It will take over, run your life if you let it. And that is about a full body awareness. I do a sort of my own work in the sun. I love to work with the sun. Anybody who knows me knows I am out in the sun as soon as I can get out. I don't like being indoors very much. I get the sun on my face, and I ask it, Grandfather Sun, to illuminate those programs within my parasympathetic which are not serving my greater growth. And that's one way I do some sort of stopping and searching and seeing what's going on within my body. The body is our DNA skin suit, isn't it? It's our medium of our experience on Earth Mother. It's very important that we work from our heart-mind connection with our whole body.
And that's it, using that body as a vehicle of self-love, self-healing and self-care, like truly telling yourself to the core of who you are. I love you, I trust you, I know who I am. And that's it. It's all about finding who you are, knowing yourself, trusting yourself. I remember at the start of a reading I had with Andrew in 2013, he asked me, do I really trust myself? And back then I didn't. And I was like thinking, why the fuck has he asked me this question? Like, he goes, do you really truly trust yourself? And I was like, a year later, I was like, actually, I don't fucking trust a lot of myself. So yeah, bringing that trust back. And there's something I'd like to add. So this journey for me, like I was at Thornborough on Sunday evening. 6 years ago, I was there doing ceremonies, totally different person, didn't know what direction I was in. I was kind of like comfortable, but now having to work with you guys, work with Andrew, I've had to like push myself, become public, all of these things. I'm like, holy fuck. I was like, what can happen when you start elevating yourself and getting yourself out there and trusting who you are? And that's something what has brought more clients to me, is that level of trust. That's anything you want to add to that, Matty, and how important that trust is?
Well, trust is earned, isn't it? And that is the great work. Trust comes in with so many other different factors. I think in the beginning there can be slight authenticity, especially when you're saying, back in the early days, and I was full on light worker. I could probably out light worker many different.
Get in the cellar now all the time, like demons. You can't fucking touch me. We've got a crystal now.
But there was so many. But it was really about, the interesting thing was, even though I was still in this light worker woo crazy phase, I was having genuine mystical experiences. But the problem was that the ego was still running fully. Everything was still running as if I hadn't had any form of healing at all. So the trust was really a process of learning to trust myself and knowing that I can actually do these things and actually have my own back. And I think this is the importance of becoming the healed healer, is when we do heal ourselves physically, spiritually, mentally, all the different facets that make us a human being, a complex being, you learn the skills that you're going to take forward as the healer. And that is, even like you said before, Dale, when you look at yourself in the past and you can see those programs so easily, that translates over to other people. So it's much more difficult when you've done a lot of self-healing for a program to come in and to infiltrate something. Whereas back in the early days, it was all programs, wasn't it? It was the other way around. It was juxtaposition. The spirit's trying to come in and the programs are casting it out and overshadowing it with their bullshit. Whereas now it's very much the opposite. And I think that is the trust process.
Yeah, absolutely. Trusting yourself, trusting the unseen world. What trust do you have for the unseen world? What trust do you have in your discernment of the unseen world, which will go down to how much work are you doing? How much of the great work are you doing, of the inner work you are doing? And trusting your knowingness, your inner wisdom, that it's guiding you along your journey for what is going to be for your best possible journey that you're going to have with Great Mystery and Great Spirit. Yeah, trust is vital, but it is something we learn along the journey.
Beautiful, Laura. And for those in the chat watching, we've got a few people watching now. I'd like you to put in the chat what trust means for you. And in your words, what does trust mean for you? Is it self-love? Is it self-commitment? I'd like to hear a bit from the chat and see what your views are, and we can talk about them. And before we go into that, Laura, do we want to go into a prayer? Because it's the equinox and it's a special time of change, we thought going into some prayer this evening would be a great idea.
Yes, because the prayer, often the way I write them is as a teaching too. So guys.
So I'd like everyone is just to get yourself nice and comfortable. Allow yourself to get into a nice space where you're nice and relaxed, and just to hear the words and allow the words to come into your awareness, and just hear the prayer and just enjoy this healing, because this is a special time and it's an incredible honor to be here with Matty and Laura and all of you guys this evening and in this show as well. And you can really see the work, what everyone puts into this, myself, Laura, Matty, Andrew. And yeah, it's an incredible time, guys. So go ahead, Laura.
And Joel.
Thanks.
And Joel, brother, we love you.
Thank you.
The clone. And the clone Joel in the background.
Okay, Spring Equinox Prayer. With the very essence of this sovereign being present in Mart in this eternal moment of now, I co-create this prayer of balance with all that is, was, and will be. I call to Great Mystery and Great Spirit to hear this I am photonic being of light share these sacred heart words. In this time of the new moon, as the moon and the sun, daylight and nightlight, equalize, I connect myself to the natural way of living. I make the sovereign choice to decalibrate from fraud time and recalibrate to universal time, to that unlimited point of view. For, like my ancestors, it is my birthright to take my first imprints from the movements of the sun, the moon and the stars, and align myself with natural co-creation with Earth Mother and all sentient kind. In this sacred equinox space, the global narrative is outside of my time-space equation. The system knows nothing of the deep listening and deep presence that is available to us all, should we so choose. I turn to feel the sun on my face, and I allow it to illuminate my internal self, so I may release all my ties to fraud time and find my pure source stream connection, so I may see all programs and conditioning working against this sovereign I am presence, so they may be released to the new era, where days grow longer with the increased light. I call to Grandfather Sun to connect me to all suns ever in existence, so I may feel the fullness of my connection and release old energies no longer a resonance match for my frequencies. I ask the solar rays to expose all that keeps me hidden from my true, authentic self. I turn to my past, present and future ancestors, as on this day of balance of the North and South Poles, recognizing the balancing of the incarnation and reincarnating energies at this time, and allow the love of universal ancestors to flow through me. This is my hour of power for my connection to you. I turn to Earth Mother as I make the sovereign choice to navigate the false light hologram as I transition from fraud time to honour and work with the Earth's natural cycles. For I am in the world, but off the Earth. I hear your sacred stories once again as I let go of domination and control, walking upon your warming Earth as you bring renewed life in your infinite cycle of death and rebirth. I turn to all soul shards lost in fraud time and no time, and use this heightened frequency of this equinox energy to recalibrate soul shards who choose unity consciousness, and I disentangle from those not ready to make this choice at this time. I turn to all sentient beings on and off Earth who hold the frequency of unity consciousness. I acknowledge you live in a different time-space equation, yet we all share the dream time. Come share this dream time equinox time of prayer. I turn to my sacred inner self, and with self in a dialogue, I align myself to be in balance with the Earth's natural frequencies. I recalibrate all my belief systems to that of Earth Mother and declare my unity consciousness expression as a disentangled observer of the self, so I may do the internal, eternal inner work. And I turn to my sacred equinox fire. I acknowledge with heart space joy the value of the infinite opportunities that is this fire's gift, if I so choose to interact with this portal to no time. And with this prayer, I honour all that is natural co-creative living on Earth. And as a modern shaman, I know we can feel, see, hear, taste and sense it all firsthand, outside of fraud time, with wonderment and joy. For that is our rite of passage, to have this natural experience of the spring equinox, and I claim that in the infinite expression of this prayer. Aho.
Aho.
Aho. Wow.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Laura. And those in the chat, how did that feel for you? Just have a few moments to process that. What are some of the feelings coming up for you?
Well,
that was
while we're
incredible,
waiting for them
Laura.
to respond.
Thanks, Neil.
I've had a collective in my crown chakra. This is the funny thing about doing this work is that we're not just broadcasting on Rumble and YouTube. We're broadcasting out on a galactic frequency, and so I have a collective here that in my light language is called Sintanaha, and they were speaking directly to Laura. They want to speak to you directly, Laura. Okay, and they would buzz in my head the whole way through that, and I had to push them back in order to just. So they're going to give some light language, and will you reply back in light language? Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Nada jintali de betela, guaragela matituhol, guaragela matitichelian, gongwa de
Oi na kai chai cha kani cha nya cho kanya wana mina wala ch a kai cha nya unyanda och
Maga, tungara, tungashindeten, padichitata halien, parikokuhan. All right, guys, now you can stop buzzing my crown chakra. Go on, off you go.
That's yeah,
You've had your 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So just allow that special frequency just to be processed. Allow yourself to breathe. And we are here in love. We are here in a space of healing and trust. And I'd like you now is to just tell yourself, I trust you. And allow that trust energy just to penetrate and go deep into the heart, deep into the valve, the muscle. And just allow a self-nurturing and self-healing process to begin. As this is your opening, this is your fire. And we are all creating the fire together. We are adding our own certain frequencies, our own wood. And I'd like you to envision yourself building a fire in front of you, stack by stack, piece by piece. And you are rebuilding yourself. And just allow yourself to light this fire and see your flame, yourself in the flame. And this is igniting you for this special new frequency of death and rebirth. This is allowing yourself to go into those deeper layers where you have never been before. And this is the layer of trust this spring equinox portal is bringing for you. Is it time to let go? Is it time to step into the great unknown of the self and become the self-master, the self-healer and the self-teacher and the self-student, all of those combined into one in balance, not one higher, not one lower, all of those in balance, the 3D, the spiritual, all of that. Allow this fire to be built in safety, in trust. And I'd like you to allow to extend this fire more and more as the heat rises, rises and rises, as it alchemizes the dense dreams that you have, the nightmares and the night terrors. So just allow this fire to go bigger and bigger, envisioning yourself now growing stronger and stronger. So these are some of the tools you can use for self-mastery and self-healing on this beautiful evening this evening. Aho.
Oh. Okay, is it my turn?
Yes,
The hour of power is here, guys.
Okay. Of course, it's going to be light language, so just relax, open up, and allow it in. Doi, sadim, parikele mehela baha, changinga repetiche pohungoha, sobinge chikabaha, tokaliala mataka, karikipele mahate chukoale bakuhungohin. Bisinko rakite telia makata, son kohta bachikelia lema. Hede beteten, quarikemene, skohaki tekela. Dusko haite chitelema. Badete chitele matekiteke elala. Elele beteto koharikela. Sungariki bete chelele mehela. Ardikete teshko hin. Porkoko hati chiko umakaka. Itekapako unwa hadelema. Orke aske eme. Orko unwe.
Oh, beautiful, Matty.
Wow. Some powerful, some wonderful frequencies there, guys. And just allow yourself to sit here on this spring equinox and just look to summer, look to the future. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be 4 months from now? Do you still want to be in your repetition without illumination? Or are you willing to grow as the sun rises? Are you willing to step up to who you really are? And thank you guys again. This is fucking incredible shit. I feel really in a nice space of trust. and this is us creating this and the chemistry between all of us as well, going into that uniqueness of what we can pull together and work and co-create with. Thank you guys.
Absolutely, and all the equations of everybody in the chat too. So let's have a look and see if there's anything in there that Kitty's talking about learning trust, which is wonderful, and realising trust was her issue. Yeah, I think you're right, absolutely. Trust is earned in everyday small victories. Beautiful way of expressing it. Shane, tell me more about death. Well,
what type of death are we talking about here? We're talking the physical death or the spiritual death?
Death of the old.
Death for me, it's a strange subject, because if it's somebody close to me, then I mourn, and I'm terrified of anything happening to my children, things like that. You know, I can't get that out of me. That's within me. But when it's not really close, death is more of a fascination to me than the process that most people see it as. Recently buried a grandmother, and it was just interesting to see the dynamics and how most people react compared to my own reactions. And sometimes I question that, why I don't have the same response to death as many people do. And I think it's because the word death within itself is misinterpreting exactly what's going on. Transition would be a much better word, although obviously on this plane we have to go through that mourning process. We have to have those emotions because that is the human experience. Without it, we wouldn't grow. But death itself is just a transition, and I mean, what can we talk about? Death is a big, long subject. It's one that has infinite potentials. I don't really know where to go from there, to be honest with you.
Well, Shayna said, well, you said death and rebirth, but it sounded like you skimmed death. So really we're talking about the cycles here, aren't we? And we're talking about natural cycles, how you lose some things and you go into new things. And this is the time of the equinox, as the earth, nature shows us that new things are coming, and you don't want to take with you anything, any of those old programs, like we were saying, that are going to hold you back, and they're not there for your greater good growth.
And like even friendships, which you talked about before, Laura, that's a big one. A lot of people hold on to friends who are narcissists, who are very. I hate using the word low frequency because that just sounds like I'm coming from ego. I'd say just like kind of draining, don't want the best for you. And this is one of the hardest things, I think, for a lot of people to work on, is letting go of the baggage which no longer serves you in order to die. Are you truly ready to die and be reborn? Are you truly ready to let go of the life what has led you down the path of mediocrity, of depression and regression, obsession, anger, and so on? And for me, it was I let go of a lot of friends, and it was awful. I hated it. But eventually, when I kept dying and I kept being reborn and doing the work I had to do on myself, I look back with hindsight now and I realise how fucking important me letting go of those people were.
Yes.
And how they disabled me in order to grow. And Great Spirit has a plan for everyone. And once we actually start living in truth, we're more involved, I'd say. We're more connected to with synchronicities of the universe, the great mystery. And like obviously Laura, Matty, Andrew, Joel, all these incredible people came into my life as soon as I was ready to die. And that old self who was in a shell, scared of going out in groups all the time, all of that shit, I had to die. I had to look at it and go, you're fucking holding me back, and I'm going to have to work on you until it, like Andrew says, becomes blue in the face, which I have. And it emerged where all of this great work paid off, and it does pay off. It's not a fast, quick situation, and a lot of people come into spirituality with an expectation it's all fluffy, it's all easy. It's not easy. It's fucking hard work. Yeah. But when you get through that hard work and you go into the states of love experience, like being able to have a chat with you, Matty, Laura, that's beautiful. But my old self 8 years ago didn't really like that. I'd rather have just been doing stuff, taking drugs, or that was the way I could feel good. But now it's about coming back to the self, coming back to the natural rhythm, listening to nature deeply. At Thornborough Henge, it's such a special place. There was birds like migrate. I'd say I don't think they're migrating, but there was just swarms of different styles of birds coming in and making noises as the sun set, and it was so beautiful because it just reminded me of what's truth, and that's a natural living and natural way. Anything anybody wants to add to that?
Yeah, I would. Death is, from the perspective, and excuse me for misconstruing your question, Shane. Death is an essential process. These two guys know me extremely well, and how much death has been in my hologram for the last year. I mean, it's been non-stop, hasn't it? It's just been death after death after death after death. And by that, without giving too much away, it has been physical death, but I've had a 20-year relationship end. I've lost my closest pet. And I know, and if you've had a dog that you've had for a long, long time, you'll know what that's like. You know, he was my boy, you know. The kind of work that I do, but then that's saying it lightly, because I've had to step out of everything, all the old habits, everything. I mean, it doesn't even sound that much when I'm saying it, but it's been about 2 or 3 years of death after death after death after death, and you know, there comes a point where we have to choose to be reborn. It doesn't just happen naturally. You have to choose it. And sometimes you have to choose it over and over and over and over again. Sometimes you're choosing something that you don't know what it's going to be. But it's exactly like what Dale just said there, is you just have to make sure that your compass point that's pointing to source connection and evolution is pointing in the right direction. Because through our difference of our wants and needs, it can go like this, and we just have to keep pointing it back in the right direction, and which is no easy feat, is it, guys? Let's face it.
No.
And the world screams for your attention.
And then there's the
Beautiful,
shaman's
bro.
death.
Yes. There we go. Laura, do you want to answer this question in the chat? I'll let you answer this one.
Is it
We'll bring
lightworkery
it
to
up.
talk
Yeah,
about
there
the
we go.
portals? Yes. Yes and no, Kitty. So the portals of the 23rd, which is 2 days' time. So the way I've understood it from Andrew is, so basically you can probably have 5 days or maybe a week over Equinox to do your fires, but then you can do them anytime, because we can be no time beings. Once we step into ceremony, we can then step back into this portal of the equinox. I mean, that's the beauty and the magic of being a multi-dimensional being, is that you can do that. And it's all about, and it's about your intention of doing that. So yes, I don't think you have to worry. If you haven't done a fire this week, it's not a concern. You can do it any time and just connect back to the spring equinox energies. Anything to add to that, guys?
I would like to just briefly. When we talk about lightworkery stuff like this, and we do jest about this a lot, and it is a big problem in the community. We're not going to make light of it, but it's much akin to when you talk about things like portals and so forth. It's much like having a drink of beer, giving it to somebody who's not an alcoholic, or giving it to somebody who is an alcoholic. It would have a different effect on each of those people. So light workers, you could consider the alcoholics, and any spiritual information you want to give them is going to work against them because of that fact. So it's just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, thanks, Matty.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Matty. Brilliantly put. And yeah, I think you've answered it. I think you both answered that really well. We'll go on to, we have Reese Warner. Hello, brother. Can you tell me about the wolf energy totem that came to me last week in meditation? For all three, I'll have a go at this one, and we'll all have a go at this one. But I've had a synchronicity, which is funny. You talk about the wolf. So when I was doing the work on these lack consciousness programs, I was in the float. I was doing a lot of floats. Then all of a sudden, towards the end, me going into these, because I was looking at these programs for a long time through the week, and it was not wearing me down, but I was seeing, it was kind of like a bit, what you look at looks back at you. And when you're doing inner work on trauma and stuff all the time, I had to really flip the frequency a lot. And as on one of my last sessions in the float, when I was doing this work on going into my old dream worlds and so on, I saw the wolf as I got out the float, and I just had an emotional release, because it just came to me and just reminded me of that, the continuing on, like the wolf spirit continues on at all times. It always keeps going, and it never gives up on itself. And to have that soul family coming together as well, we all look after each other. And that wolf mentality is, are you ready to keep going and going until the next level of awareness, the next level of awareness, the next level of awareness? So for me, Reese has been my totem throughout my life. And it came to me not so long ago to continue to keep going, continue on like the wolf howl, continue to be strong like the wolf. There's so many different aspects of the wolf we can work with. But for me, it was about striving, going, moving, and so on. Laura, anything you want to add about the wolf?
Yes, Reese, get yourself round that lovely fire pit you showed me and ask your ancestors. Wolves are from the land of the north, land of your ancestors. So maybe there's a message there for you that neither Dale, Matty or me can answer that one for you. It's something you can connect to, and you can get that answer, which will be very personal to you.
And the wolf for you, Reese, is asking you ready to howl to your victories? Are you ready to give the wolf howl because of how well you've done, brother? And that's what wolf for me is, what I'm reading at the moment to you, is how to howl your own victories into the moon, or wherever the fuck you want to howl. You've done some great work, brother. And it's time to howl this bitch down.
And know that your pack is behind you. Ow!
Yeah.
Wow.
So, Kitty, death is not only physical. I just killed my old self. Yes, so that can be a bit of a shaman's death, really. And shaman's death are really quite huge transitions, huge rites of passage that we all work through at one stage or another, and we can have more than one, can't we, guys?
Over and over.
Yes, I was howling.
You know
Someone calls the police next door. Motherfucker's howling.
Well done, Reese.
Well done, brother.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well, yes, Derek, a lot of people don't realise they're alive. Oh, well, maybe they know they're alive, but it is like the living dead. Yeah, well, they're asleep, aren't they? Or they are. What's another word for it, guys?
Muggles.
Muggles.
No, sorry.
Mug blood.
All we can do, Derek, and what us three here do, and what we've learnt from Andrew, is we do our inner work, and we do our self-care, and we do our self-mastery. So ultimately, if we raise, this sounds very light workery, but I'm going to say it anyway. So we raise our vibration, which raises the vibration of those around us, or not. They either become a thanks, Dale. They become a signature frequency match for us, or they don't. We can't. When I say we can't concern ourselves with them, that's their journey this lifetime. We have to just be the best we can be, the best version of ourselves that we can be this lifetime, which is why the three of us are sat here now, and the three of us work with Andrew. That's what we want to do. Yeah. Focus on your own self-healing. Sorry,
lots of people
Matty.
don't look like they don't know they're alive, and from in my journey, it's something that I did used to use to judge people with. I was very judgmental at one point, but now I'm actually looking inside. I'm healing myself. I realise I can't say shit to anybody, and that's the truth of the matter. So I do really, I take pleasure in my I'm going to use the word, my muggle relationships and my muggle interactions, because I'm no longer judging them for the things that they haven't done, because I know what it's like. You know, and each level that I go to, each layer that I go to, exposes the next one. So it never really ends, and it can be disheartening sometimes when people really don't make the most of their lives. But hey, this is why we're the best of the best, right?
Incredible, brother. And that's it. Moving forward, spring is here. What are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with our time now? And for me, I had a lot of, as I was reading the land at Thornborough Henge and asking the land what was in store, or I wouldn't say in store is the right word, but some inspiration and prayer from the land. And as I was reading the land and going into the land, it was the expression of pilgrimage and being able to make a trip, and making a trip with the intention of listening and receiving. And the Earth Mother is there, always listening, always receiving. And it's just whether you're going to be still enough to listen. And that was for me as a huge death and rebirth for me, being able to go into even more stillness and create a pilgrimage in spring, go out, have some time alone on my own, be by myself and really listening to that silence. And I do feel a lot of people need that in order for them to grow more and more, to go into that nice silence, that nothingness, because in nothingness you can get everything. And that's, you know, that feeling you get when you're in nothingness and it's flowing and it just feels like you're in the mystery, you're in the potentials of anything to happen, but you're not controlling, you're not expecting. And we can talk about
unknowingness.
Yes, brother. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the edge of unknowingness, Matty, and go into that?
Okay, so the edge of unknowingness is one of those teachings that is very hard to get your head around at first, until you're able to go into the silence. And the silence doesn't mean that you have to sit there like a Buddhist monk with an empty mind for hours on end with your legs crossed. It's just an internal and external letting go. So the best way I can express it is in sessions. I mean, you must experience this, guys, as well. So when you have a session with somebody, if you get into a place, if you're a practitioner, and before you have a session, you plan the session. You think to yourself, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to take it, this is what I expect from this person. You are limiting every facet of that experience. Every part of that interaction is limited. So when you just open up and then you just allow whatever it is to come forward, that's being at the edge of unknowingness. That's a basic metaphor. But that's where the true wisdom is. And it is the ability to be able to just switch off, remove expectations, and allow whatever's going to happen. And that's where you find the most power.
It's in divine flow, isn't it? And it's where you find the earth natural synchronicities from the earth natural incarnation grid. Synchronicities is in that divine flow, which is beyond the living the mystical life daily. And it's there, as Matty says, when we just clear away all the dross surrounding everything. It's there for all of us to do the work, and then life can be very smooth. But it's difficult to maintain that. It takes work, doesn't it, guys? I was just going to touch on what you said about pilgrimage, Dale. I like that, because spring is the time. Look, to use Matty's term, in the world of muggles, they look at going on holidays. Maybe we look at going on pilgrimages, which might well be a holiday. And the same amount of planning is needed as if you were going on a holiday, but also the same amount of planning that is your respect and your honour of the ancestors for the lands to which you're going to. So that requires some pre-work, doesn't it, guys, if you're going to go on a pilgrimage? What does that mean to both of you?
Go ahead, Matty.
My concept of pilgrimage is changing. I have been pilgrimaging my whole life. I realise that now. I never really do holidays. There's something I'm going to do, something that I want to start doing, or vacations for any of the Americans out there. It's not really something that I do, but pilgrimaging is something very different. So I think most of my pilgrimaging at the moment is done in the unseen. So, pilgrimages to Sacred Mountain, pilgrimage to your camp, to places like this, these internal pilgrimages. But obviously, we have a wonderful pilgrimage coming up to Scotland, and there's still a few seats left if anybody wants to come on this pilgrimage with us. But that's something that is starting to come into my awareness now, Laura, because it's been so long since I've done a proper pilgrimage. And I really did get something out of it, but I had all of my programs and my baggages and all of that with me. And now that I'm a lot lighter, I'm looking forward to seeing what can come out of it. But really, it's much the same as the healing we're talking about. It's going back to your past self and doing healings on your past self. It's much the same thing. You just flip that to the future, and instead of sending, well, you can send healings, but you can do anything you want. Make prayers to the ancestors. And I mean, it's infinite. It's an infinite universe out there. Whatever you do in your great work, you can then project forward to yourself. I'm really, really looking forward to beginning that work. Yeah. And one thing, another little skill that I've learned, a little snippet, is while I'm looking at the past, I'm able to see the clothes that I was wearing, things like that. So I think I may actually intentionally pick some clothes and wear them when we're in Scotland, so that I can laser focus in on myself and do the work. Because if I can get if I get any part where I can actually grab a vision and grab something, then it really amplifies the experience for me.
Your future self. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
Incredible. And for me, pilgrimage would be being able to clear myself before I go out and actually physical experience the natural world. As you go out, you want to come back into a new frequency. You want to go out with the intention of dying, the intention of changing, but not expecting anything, just allowing yourself to be open enough to hear and listen to the land, listen to nature. If you're going out on a pilgrimage and expecting you to have Ascended Master Jonathan or Roger come down and give you a colonic or anything like that, you have in your awareness, you're not going to be in the mystical anymore. And this is, for me, when I was at Formbrahenge, the land was speaking and saying, are you ready to pilgrimage now? But are you ready to do it properly? And I've done many pilgrimages before, but the awareness I have now compared to then is so different. And the land was saying, are you ready to listen now? And before I wasn't ready to listen. I was so involved in who I was, what I wanted to do in my life, what this event, that event, this work, that work. I feel like now I can actually switch off. So clear yourself before you go out, make that journey outwards, and come back into the house, the home, a different person. Just know that person who left is gone. That person who left is dead. And this person you're going to come back with is more growth for the house, more love for the house, more love for the future. And these are some of the things you can put into the pilgrimages. Start, like Matty says, put the intention on the future. Start sending prayers of love, protection, groundedness, balancing, all of those variations. And that's what the great work is, past, present and future simultaneously existing, knowing that you have the responsibility now, listening to Andrew and some of the great teachings he does. You have to be responsible for the future as well. And that stepping into being the Grand Master is then moving forward and setting treatments forward ahead of time, fortifying the future as well. And that's something I've been doing only more lately. And now I've started doing a lot more on that. I need to focus on this shit in front as well.
And if I could give a description of what the difference is between a pilgrimage and, say, a vacation or something like this, it would be that you're doing it with intention. So when we pilgrimage, what we are is we're like bees, and we go to an area of the planet like a flower. Yeah, it's just much like a flower. So just see whatever area we're going to as a flower, and we take some pollen from wherever we've been and some pollen of ourselves, and we drop that pollen off at that place, and then that produces the fruit. But then we take some pollen from that place to the next place, and that's very much what it is. We take our unique signature frequency and we pollinate the planet with it, and the planet then gives us more pollen in order to go around with. And the reason that we do these prayers and these intentions, and the reason that you should do cleansing and ritual and ceremony before you go, leading up to it, so you are spiritually clean, is to allow more of that energy, more of that frequency. So when you go to those places, you have already sent yourself prayers, you already have that energy there, and the ancestors can truly co-create with you in a way that's beneficial to the land, to you, to your future, your past, and to all the other beings that wish to interact with you.
Well, beautiful, Matty. And what do bees do? They buzz, and they buzz with joy. And
what does
got to underline all of that.
What does a pilgrimage mean to you, Laura?
That I can't put it any better than you two have said, other than it's a time of joy, a celebration with the ancestors of that land. It's something I get very excited about. I plan everything from, usually it's in my camper van, and I did a massive pilgrimage up to Loch Ness and Scotland last year, and many of you know all about that. But that, obviously there's a lot of 3D planning. There's a lot of planning on the physical, and let's face it, joy is physical. So much of this we want to hand over into the mystical realms, and so much of this is grounded joy, and you really want to do it. You have that desire to connect to those ancestors, and as Matty so eloquently said, we're pollinators. And it doesn't stop there, does it? We go and from that we build on the rest of our great work, because we're here to have experiences. And that is part of our experiences, and parts of our rites of passage are to go on these great pilgrimages. So thanks, guys, for answering that one for me.
And the more preparation that you do, you take that with you. You see, it's like having a big suitcase with everything you're going to need. You know then that you can just let down and have fun because you've got it all covered. And that doesn't mean to say that when you go to these places you don't have to do ritual and ceremony, but it's not. It doesn't have to be this somber, doing the work kind of thing that a lot of light workers have and a lot of spiritual people have. So once you've done that back up, then you get to just go there and be fun to have fun, because you take that with you and you get to be that human. I mean, we could if we exposed our private chat to the world, they'd be horrified, wouldn't they? No one would listen to our shows anymore.
No, but it is, as Andrew would say, it's take that spiritual stick out from your backside.
Yeah,
really.
And have fun. It's about fun.
Yeah,
it's about being a human here right now, having human relationships.
And
Yeah.
don't try and clear the demons from the castles.
No.
Because you'll get your ass whooped.
Yes, you will.
So we have a question here from Kitty. Can you clarify the intention and expectation, please? So who would like to go? Laura, do you want to go ahead with that?
Well, expectation takes you out of the moment of now. So expectation puts a layering over something which will stifle the unlimited point of view. And we all deal it in the we want to work with the unlimited point of view, because expectation starts to take away from unlimited potential that is there for you. So when you go with expectation, there's a very subtle energy running within you of how you think it should be, and that means you're cutting out some of the way Great Spirit and Great Mystery can work and co-create with you for your greater good.
Yes. And so intention itself is a frequency where you want to take action, you want to do something, but it's just an intention. It's a going into something with an energy of doing this. Whereas an expectation is very different. An expectation, as Laura said, expectations create limitations. So if you have an intention to go into something, and then you have an expectation of what's going to happen, what you do is you put a limitation on all of the potentials, the infinite potentials that the universe has and your fetus in the womb process has for you. So when you can't step outside of those expectations, you can't actually even really allow what's meant for you and what the perfect outcome may be to actually happen, because you're too busy pushing. If it doesn't do this, then it's not right. If it doesn't do this, then it's not right.
You're agenderized. You're in agenda.
And that's it. That non-agenda source, infinite being, whenever you choose to be. And that's what it comes down to again, doesn't it? Choice. Whether you make that choice or not, whether you make the choice to expect, whether you don't make the choice to expect. And just moving forward, looking at some of our inner programs and inner things which do happen. Say if we go out in a public setting or a group, just feel if there's any programs coming into you about, are you expecting that? Are you expecting what's going to happen in the future? And if you find yourself doing that, then again, that's not you speaking. That's the inner programs, that's the inner martyr. And it's about being able to be, as going back to that wolf, being courageous to be in the body, being courageous to move forward, being courageous to howl who you are. And when you have those times, roar away those self-created demons, howl away the self-created demons. Or like Reese does, just do a howl. Just say, when it comes in, just start howling. Go, I see you for what you are, and you are not limiting me anymore. And we all have these experiences, myself included. Things will just come into me, and I'm like, wow, that isn't me. That's an internal program going off, trying to limit me and expect as well. Incredible stuff, guys, so far. And can I just say thank you for all the great questions in the chat. Really do appreciate them.
Yeah, we do. Expectations keep you in the duality instead of the unlimited singularity.
So guys, we've done the hour of power and we've got around about 10 minutes left of the show. So what do we want to talk about closing the show? Do we want to say a prayer or do we want to go into more questions? What are you guys feeling?
Well, our lovely Amy's just come on, so I feel it would be good to answer this one just for a couple of minutes.
Hello, Amy.
Hi. What about the forgiveness process, this equinox, forgiving self and others? Can you share a process you all do? Okay, it's not something I particularly do at equinox, but there's no reason why you can't do it this equinox. Forgiveness is one of the very first things I learned, Amy. Even right back as a light worker, it was one of those things that I knew I had to forgive, even if I didn't forget. I had to forgive. And what I didn't learn early on was the forgiving of myself. So I went around thinking, I'm doing great, I've forgiven everybody everything, and then forgetting to have the boundaries. So if you're going to do the forgiveness, do have the boundaries in place as well, energetic and physical. And forgiving myself was something I learnt later. And I think there's a process where I'm still learning it as well, because I will notice the parasympathetic programs that come up when sometimes I beat myself up and think, oh, I haven't done this today, I really need to do this. When I'm taking that too far and I'm trying to do something spiritual that's not in joy, I realise that is forgiving myself, a forgiveness of myself that needs to be done, because I can't necessarily fit it all in a day, and if I'm not going to do it with joy, then there's no point in doing it. So that's my take on it, guys.
Incredible. So the funniness of that, and you saying about spring equinox, Amy, so for me every spring is my forgiveness time. So that it's been pushed because of some stuff I've had to work on, so it's now pushed forward a few weeks, but every spring I write down where I haven't forgiven myself, and I write as much as I can and go into deeper list, and I start with forgiving myself. And Andrew's talked about this on shows, and it truly does work and help a lot. Is when you start doing the forgiveness ritual, start forgiving yourself, writing down as many things as you can, what you haven't forgiven yourself for, and something so little as, say, making fun of someone when you were younger, or not being able to get onto the football team. Just all of these little aspects of you, write those down, and first do yourself. Always do yourself first, and afterwards it's important you do other people. Write down the names, close portals to them, and like Andrew said, it's important you say it twice. So when you're saying the forgiveness, you project it at the person, then you project it inwards. So you're saying it once to the person, projecting out, then you're bringing it in and doing it into yourself as well. And you'll just basically remove more dense energy, and afterwards you feel fucking so light. You're like, wow. It's like you just all this baggage, all of these rocks in the sack, just slowly coming off and off. And a good question to ask yourself now is there anyone in your life who will give you charge? Say if they came in the room now and you'd be like, I fucking hate you. So try and think of yourself. If you want to write them down in the chat, you can. Feel free. But I'd like you to test yourself. So see if there's anybody in this world who'd come in the room and you'd hold charge and polarity against them and you'd hate them. If there is someone, that's work to do. And to the point it gets, I'm not saying invite them to have a fucking cup of tea. Invite your enemies who you hate until that. But that's, as Andrew said, litmus test and everything like that. Matty, do you want to go ahead and...
Yeah, absolutely. So forgiveness for me has been a long road. Initially at the beginning I thought, yeah, I've forgiven everybody. But I think the truth was I didn't give a fuck. I think that's a very different thing to forgiveness. And forgiveness for me it's now, and I'm not completely healed. I'm not ascended in 5D with all my crystalline DNA structure.
You're the unascended masters, brother.
Yeah. But I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of inner work and a lot of ceremony and a lot of ritual. And that, we keep saying this, it's the cornerstone of all spiritual practice. It's always about the self-work, the inner work, ritual, ceremony, self-healing, self-love, self-nurture, all of that stuff. And over the years that I've been practicing, what it's done is it brings you into what Andrew calls the sacred neutral point of view, the neutral perspective. And when you can cultivate a neutral perspective, forgiveness is almost given instantly. I mean, none of us are perfect, so we're still working at this, but it's not such a chore. There definitely are moments when we've taken on charge where, like as Dale was just saying, as Laura was saying, that we must go into an extended forgiveness process, a proper ritualized forgiveness process, and that's essential for our growth. But I experience forgiveness now more like somebody will do something and the charge will come in, and I just know that in order for me to give the forgiveness, I've got to work on the parts of myself that are triggered, the parts of myself that are holding charge from whatever the hell has just happened. And so it's always a flip of the frequency. It's not really like, look what you've done, look what you've made me feel. It's much the case of like that, oh look here, a shadow to be exposed.
Yeah.
And then forgiveness follows instantly. Or not so instantly in some cases.
And Derek's right here. Being unforgiving can lead to ill health, I agree.
It's just a sign that you've got more self-work to do. If anybody who cannot forgive other beings, it's just a sign.
You hold it in your body, don't you?
Absolutely. Okay. So Gingerbeard has gone.
Okay.
Where are we now?
He will be back in a couple of minutes, and maybe to round up, guys, if there's no more questions, then how about we do a little bit of Equinox light language, Matty, or spring equinox light language blessing?
Sure.
How do you feel about doing something like
Absolutely.
that between us to close the show? Grand Master of Light Language. Any more
Okay, so
questions,
let me
guys? Just I think
Go
we've
to
done.
the edge of awareness, the edge of unknowingness.
Thank you, guys, everyone, for coming on.
Okay, right.
The big
We've got
picture. Anyone else I haven't recognised? Oh, Reese said, well, I forgot to answer that. Will you take seeds? What, to Scotland? Spiritual seeds. We'll be the
take some seeds.
pollinators, Reese. Yeah.
We'll take some seeds and bring them back to you, fella.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to extend from that fire that Dale created earlier on, that equinox fire that Dale created. Now we gather once again around that fire, and the ancestors are all here, and they have a message for us. Would you like to start, Laura? Here we go.
Ona anya chichikonya aka ichala onya aka akana.
Doiha, tunsta, quante ti petech, kork ihlama, sumpoko te teche lama halil, sumpa de te chungo, unga artik elmelo ahingel, urtik ella machidel, urk ella, sunkurtipela, kumbakatitich kuhakata, marikelelema, chungaraki betechel, morkuhungo, shongara betechel, makihela maharagete te batiche, parike beteshu mahal, kwahatekel, marel helies, sangarabel. Bohoraba, mokachukuadidem, karkepichikalia de batike el maha, oskoa de betel. Borkumha, bukohanchkoa, bukohachik el mahardik el, borkoha, sunquateching, patikahari pekel muahe.
Shi onge chakubawa, shi losi anja, chunge abawa chi. Shingo anti etola kangabawa, kingo echa, balakunje anga, chuli e shumba, chilakoke angalako e se andumba, chinga kunje helaka kunge, helo humba wa. Enchumbi Alicia kunga chile sola bawa chiengo le sanga kunje hale sakumba wa le hangu shikanga kule sebatu shu.
Wow. Beautiful. There you go.
And there we go, the hour of power.
And Derek, let's answer this. Before you close, can you maybe do an alignment to the flowing in equinox energies for us and beyond? Derek, go and use my prayer. Or write your own along those lines. If you want to be in alignment to the flowing in equinox energies, that is aligning to the natural energies of Earth, and it's decalibrating from fraud time. So you can, great exercise is to write your own one. Anything else, guys?
And so talking about light language, we have Light Language Colonics Part 2 this coming Thursday. Really excited to be doing the second one. We had some great feedback from the first one. We had a lot of people shitting out a lot of stuff. crapping out the oldest, densest, darkest parts stuck
Yeah.
within our body.
Yeah, so there we go. What a perfect time to be doing it then in this spring equinox week. Another colonic.
And there we go, guys. I'd just like to say a great thank you for all of those in the chat. It's been really good talking to you and all of your questions as well. They've just made this show incredible. Wow, guys, what a show.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. So why don't you give people a way to get hold of you and tell us what you've got going on?
So what I've got going on, so I teach psychic surgery. So if anybody would like to learn psychic surgery and be a registered practitioner, go on to daletobin.com. I also teach past life regression. So if you want to be a past life regression practitioner and you want to know the skills and the many different aspects within past life, how to safely bring them into a deep relaxed state. I trained in hypnotherapy, so there's so much entwined in the past life as well. I've trained in hypnotherapy and learned all the brainwave techniques and everything's involved into that as well. And psychic surgery sessions. I've been doing psychic surgery for a long time now. I fucking love it. It's ingrained into me where each session now, like Andrew says, more and more of the grandmasters coming in, like Laura and Matty are as well. It's something I fucking love. And if you'd like to witness my hands, many hands working on you, working in different aspects of soul retrieval, working with the ancestral homeworld as well, calling to your psychic surgeons, working with them. We do a lot of work, many different shit what goes down. It's hard to put into words. So yeah, drop me an email, drop me a message. I'd love to have a session. And Matty, you go ahead for people to get hold of you for sessions.
Absolutely, and much like Dale, I'm a psychic surgeon as well, general all-round psychic. I love to do psychic surgery sessions. There is absolutely no condition that can't be worked on, or even if you just have an inclination that you just feel like you need something, a little extra something, you'll be so surprised when you sit down with someone like us. So yeah, you can get a hold of me on mattywaller at icloud.com, MATYWALLER at icloud.com, or you can go onto twofeathersmedicine.com and there's a piece there about who I am and what I do. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm also a psychic surgeon now, since I've had my incredible training from Dale. So that's another thing I now have clients in for. I'm a cranial sacral therapist and I teach shamanic sacred self-mastery through shamanic practices. So you'll find me on twofeathersmedicine.com. I've got an offer going on at the moment this spring equinox, 50% off if you'd like a taster session in one of those. And also I love writing, as many of you will know from my revocations and prayers and so on. So I've got my own prayer product coming out soon for beginners, how to get into prayer, with over an hour of my own prayers and writings that will help you, are also teachings and will help you get into the prayer practice. So that will be coming out soon. So thanks everybody who's come in the chat. Thank you, past, present and future.
And just one last thing, guys. So with Scotland, like Matty said before, we have 9 days until the bus door closes. So we've got 9 days left and all of the numbers and everything. We've only got a few spaces left as well. So if you're wanting to join us in the Highlands of Scotland, where we're able to have a uniqueness of coming around there with myself, Laura, Matty and the great Andrew Bartis, galactic historian, to see Andrew in that great rhythm and that great energy and to meet him. Would you like to meet Andrew? And now's your time. Go on andrewbartis.com. He does sessions as well, galactic Akashic record readings as well. So get yourself on the bus tour. It's going to be fucking incredible. I'm so excited for it.
Because the plan is that Andrew will try and sit with everybody at least once on the tour, on the bus. So you will get next to him personally, and obviously we'll be eating together. We'll be sharing some incredible experiences. I don't think we could possibly pack any more into this tour, can we, guys?
Keep him dosed up on coffee and cigarettes and see what happens.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Thank you from Cyprus,
Thank you, guys.
from South Africa, and wherever you are in the world.
Thank you for the crowd interaction here. It's been amazing to actually have some questions on, and we really like it when people come on, ask questions, so we don't have to sit here racking our own brains the whole time.
Yeah, we appreciate you all, guys, on your own self-mastery journeys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great Equinox, guys. Have a special time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Welcome everyone to the Scottish Highlands Galactic Historian What's Your Purpose tour. You're asking, what's my purpose? Your purpose is to go on this tour and discover the mystical, magical highlands and lowlands of Scotland. We'll be going from Edinburgh to Kirkwall, Inverness, all over the Scottish lands, as you can see on our incredible map. So I want to bring in Dale to talk about what is going to be included with this trip.
So what's included on this What's My Purpose tour, we'll get a chance to meet Andrew Bartis, and we'll be able to ask him what our own purposes are, and we'll be able to ponder and try and figure this out in 10 days.
And each and every day we will be driving and I will be talking about the histories of the places that we are passing and going to. And a part of these attractions are what we're including in this tour to make it the most memorable tour I've ever been on. Dale, what are the attractions and everything that's included?
A Scottish driver and also a guide. You'll have your own very luxurious Mercedes-Benz coach as well. It'll include all transport and ferries, 9 nights accommodation and 9 breakfasts and also dinner included as well. So for the attractions you'll get a free entry to Dunrobin Castle and Gardens. You'll also be tasting the fine whiskey at the Highland Whiskey Distillery tasting, where you'll be able to see the spirits being made and created. And we'll be also getting entry to Scarabray, the Garrigan Black Houses Village, Callanish Standing Stones, which are so famous throughout the world. And we'll be also going entry to the Armdale Castle and Gardens, where we get the chance just to relax and walk around and just enjoy the scenery and the outside and the history. Also, we'll be going on a half-boat day trip to Stafford, and we'll be also going to entry to Iron Abbey.
This is your opportunity to take the pilgrimage with all of us to the Scottish Highlands, the 10-day bus tour around the Scottish Highlands. On the first day of the journey, of this 10-day journey,